Mexico overtakes China as the leading source of goods imported by the U.S. This story by the Associated Press. The story's been around for about a week now. I'm just now getting to it. Let me read a little bit about this and then I'll put some inputs. For the first time in more than 2 decades, Mexico last year surpassed China as the leading source of goods imported by the United States. The shift reflects the growing tensions between Washington and Beijing, as well as U.S. efforts to import from countries that are friendlier and closer to home. Figures released Wednesday by the U.S. Commerce Department show that the value of goods imported by the United States from Mexico rose nearly 5% from 2022 to 2023 to more than $475 billion. At the same time, the value of Chinese imports tumbled 20% to $427 billion. Last time that Mexican goods imported by the United States exceeded the value of China's imports was in 2022. Now, this is good news for Mexico, of course. They're getting more business from the United States. This whole past 20 years, China as a country has been growing substantially. They got a middle class, they got luxury life, they got a robust military going on, and it's all paid for by US dollars because we keep buying cheap crap from them. Now, China's in this unique position where, because they have more rich individuals, growing companies, cost of living's going up, the workers are demanding for more money. Otherwise, they go look for a job somewhere else that's willing to pay them for more money. So now labor in China is costing more. Companies are finding cheaper labor in Mexico. Hence why the shift. That's the biggest money expense a business has is labor. Labor is not cheap. That's why we don't have many manufacturing jobs in the United States. They just send those jobs out to another country where they could pay someone much, much cheaper for the labor so the goods can be sold at a cheaper price to the consumer here in the US. The shipping costs, not so bad as long as the labor costs are way down. But of course, labor costs are going up in China. So now, where can these companies find cheaper labor? They could stay with China and increase the prices, or they could find cheaper labor in Mexico and keep prices remaining steady and at least outbeat the competitors on prices for goods. And it's our next door neighbor, right? Economic relations between the United States and China have severely deteriorated in recent years as Beijing has fought aggressively on trade and made enormous military gestures in the Far East. This is them, putting pressure on Taiwan, threatening to take them over, whatnot. The Trump administration began imposing tariffs on Chinese imports in 2028, arguing that Beijing's trade practices violated global trade rules. President Joe Biden retained those tariffs after taking office in 2021, making clear that the antagonism toward China would be a rare area of common ground for Democrats and Republicans. Yeah, Trump started tariffs, Biden continued them. It's interesting that, hey, at least Republicans and Democrats in this area, they agree, let's keep these tariffs on China. You know what, we don't like what's going on there. We're giving them way too much money, right? We keep buying too much stuff that's made in China, right? It's frustrating, right? This is a big one, right? It just comes down to the cheaper labor. But hopefully, some of these plants that are already in China, like the Foxconn ones, where Apple makes their phones, hopefully they switch over to Mexico or somewhere that's not China, right? I think I could be mistaken. Maybe they're making some in India. I could be wrong. I think I read something like that. But the relationship with Mexico, the next door neighbor, and we have a problem with them at the border, right? But we're hoping, at least I'm hoping, I don't know about you, but hopefully, if we keep buying more goods from Mexico, their economy props up. And the issue at the southern border of the United States becomes less of an issue over time because migrants flooding into Mexico trying to get to the U.S., hopefully they decide to stay in Mexico where the factory jobs are, more opportunities, and then let Mexico deal with their own southern border of immigration and people coming in through the waters, right? Let them have a taste of that problem. As an alternative to offshoring production to China, which U.S. corporations had long engaged in, the Biden administration has urged companies to seek suppliers in allied countries or to return manufacturing to the United States. Supply chain disruptions related to the COVID-19 pandemic also led U.S. companies to seek suppliers closer to the United States. Yeah, I mean, if anything that we learned from the pandemic, that we buy too much crap from China. And most of those goods come by sea, right? It crosses the Pacific rather. It takes a long time. And then their only stop really is Los Angeles for whatever reason. I'm sure someone in the comments will say why they only stop in Los Angeles when there's other ports they could go to. If you buy goods from Mexico, you don't need a huge boat. You just have a truck. It gets to the U.S. in the same day. They fill it up, drive across the border, get to Los Angeles, drop their goods, go back to Mexico, repeat, right? This is stuff trade can happen within a matter of hours versus weeks. I don't agree with the Biden administration too much, but I do agree that urging companies to seek suppliers with allied countries or a neighbor like Mexico. Otherwise, just make it here in the U.S. Stop depending on China for the cheap labor and make our goods in the U.S. I'm sick of the cheap made in China stuff myself, and I don't know how you guys feel. But it is frustrating that everything's made in China. We prop them up to this number 2 economic powerhouse in the globe. I mean, I don't know what news you get. Some of them say they're number 1 around the world. Here in the U.S., we still say they're number 2 and we're number 1. Whatever data's out there, who knows who's right. Now, this is really interesting in this next paragraph, and this might be the last one. I don't want to get too far deep. Mexico has been among the beneficiaries of the growing shift away from reliance on Chinese factories. But the picture is more complicated than it might seem. Some Chinese manufacturers have established factories in Mexico to exploit the benefits of the 3-year-old U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, which allows for duty-free trade in North America for many products. Now, China's economy shifted a lot like U.S., right? Instead of making stuff, we became more of a service-based, because we're more service-based economy. We're looking for cheaper labor somewhere else. We found China. China's like, we'll do the labor for cheap. More and more money kept going in, kept buying their stuff, and now they've grown as an economy, and now they're switching over to service-based, where they're saying, hey, we're going to just have someone else make our stuff for us, like Mexico. If you're going to use Mexico as the country for cheaper labor, we're going to do it too. Now there's going to be this weird middleman race type situation with Mexico, where China's trying to build stuff in Mexico for the cheap labor, while the U.S. is trying to do it at the same time too. But China, most of their goods are bought by the U.S., so it's like, okay, we'll just set the factories here and ship it to the U.S. at a faster rate. It's keep our contracts with us, with the Chinese government, Chinese businesses. We'll just make the goods in Mexico and ship it to you faster. But why do we need the Chinese as the middleman, though? I'm sure there's many reasons, right? People are contractually obligated and whatnot, keeps relationships, yada, yada, yada. And, intellectual patents are always stolen in China. But I'm sure there's reasons for it. But I really just want to talk about that. I hope 10 years from now, we have less reliance on China for our goods. I'd rather it be anyone but China. Mexico sounds very convenient because it's right next door to us. They're allies, I guess. Not NATO allies, but they're allies in another sense. And hopefully, if their economy props up, it will indirectly help with the problem at the border. Because the border is like, say what you want. I mean, it's for another video. I made videos about this, but the border's like wide open. It's crazy. It's just nuts. And most of them are coming in for economic opportunities. There's a lot of Chinese crossing through that border too, by the way. But I digress. I don't want this to be a conversation about the border. Please don't comment that. Just, I'm hoping that this uplifts Mexico a little bit, solves the problem with the border, let Mexico deal with their border issues down south, right? But I think that's enough, I gotta say. If you like this video, please like, subscribe. Please comment below. I do read the comments. And talk to you later. Take care.